We are now over a month past the release date for MLB The Show 18, and everyone is kind of starting to realize that it really is kind of a broken game. But just how broken is it? Is it beyond redemption? Is it beyond saving this dying behemoth that's called Diamond Dynasty? Are we beyond that? Or can we save it? Can we figure out a way as a community to relay the information to SDS to fix all of the problems that we have with MLB The Show 18? And can we make sure that in the future things like this don't happen again, and that we are always presented with a very playable product at the beginning of the year? This video really isn't going to answer questions about this specific season, like this year, MLB The Show 18, but just kind of where MLB The Show and San Diego Studios, where they're taking the series philosophically, what they're trying to do, what they think is best, and what I think is actually best for MLB The Show. This is largely in response to a video that Jivvy World made about a week ago. I believe the title of it was something like "What SDS Developers Don't Want You to Know About Hitting," or something like that, and it addressed a very interesting point. One of those points was that San Diego Studios, for the past couple of years, has been moving away from being very competitive, having a very wide skill gap, having to practice to get good at hitting, and they have been moving towards a broader appeal. Appealing to the masses, the guys who don't take the game as seriously. And a lot of people think that that's a problem, and it's caused a huge divide in the community. So, are there any options to save MLB The Show, or the MLB The Show that a lot of us love and enjoy? Right now, SDS seemingly, ostensibly, they have two options. Just from an outsider's perspective. One, they can continue down the course that they're currently going down. They can try to placate the casual fan, the mass audience that plays Diamond Dynasty, make it easier to hit, open up the timing windows, slow the pitch speed down, stuff like that. They can continue down that track, and I think ultimately it will lead to a borderline unplayable game. Right now, every single step that they've taken to placate the casuals has created more and more and more problems with hitting. Because they've moved away from what they did best, which was difficult hitting, making it to where people had to practice to become good at this game. But I do understand the appeal of wanting to bring in as many people as possible and have them enjoy the game. I don't want to leave those guys hanging out to dry. And that's kind of what the second option does. The second option is to go full out esports mode to make the game, revert it back to maybe MLB 15's type of hitting, where pitches were coming in at insane speeds, where you had to be really accurate, and it was a very difficult game to hit in. And because of that, I think the year ended with only like 40 people in the World Series or something like that. It was a very, very difficult game, and it would seem like the opposite of that first option would be to revert back to that and to try to cultivate a competitive scene to market your game, to try to entice those casual players to get better at the game, to want to play the game, to popularize it, and get more advertising through esports and stuff like that, to make more people want to join this community and to try to get good at the game. That seems like option number two, and neither of them really seem to be great options, because you don't want to alienate either side, right? There are basically two camps in MLB The Show right now. There are those who want the game to be very, very competitive with a very wide skill gap. They want it to be very difficult to hit. And then outside of hitting, they just want gameplay to be very balanced with as little randomness as possible. And then you have the other side of the argument who just wants to sit down, play, have a fun game, hit a couple home runs, and it not be this insanely difficult thing. And, well, the argument against that would be, well, why don't you just go play offline with easy settings? But there is something to be said about playing against another person, playing online with your friends. It's huge right now. It's very popular, and they want to participate in that, and they don't want to do it under such difficult conditions. And I understand that. I typically lean a little bit more to the side of the competitive players and stuff like that, but I do understand wanting to appeal to those casual players. So the question then becomes, is there a third option? And I think that there is, but I don't really like it. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and this was really the best option that I could come up with, but I'm not very creative. The guys at SDS and game developers in general are a lot more creative than I am. So maybe they have something in their minds that could accomplish this same goal a lot more efficiently. But this is basically it. This is what I think would go a long way towards fixing MLB The Show. First of all, they need to revert back to MLB The Show's 16s hitting. Last year, people were really upset with like late hits and the timing window just being so wide, and it wasn't a great experience for the competitive players, but it was probably pretty good for the casuals, but it didn't placate both sides. I think that MLB 16 did the best job of this. Everybody was relatively happy with the hitting, and while I do realize that MLB 15 would provide a more competitive scene than MLB 16's hitting did, I think MLB 16 would do a better job of keeping both sides happy. But that's not it. There's other stuff I think they need to do. First of all, I think second of all, really, they need to separate out ranked seasons into ranked and seasons. There needs to be it needs to be split into two different modes. Seasons needs to be the one with all the rewards, all of the, all that good stuff, all the rewards, all the stubs that you can earn. That needs to be through seasons. And it can work the same way that it works right now, or they could change it up a little bit if they want to, as long as the rewards stay the same and the hitting difficulty isn't too bad. They stay at a hitting difficulty that appeals to the mass audience that they're trying to appeal to, and it doesn't get progressively more difficult. It just kind of stays the same throughout the entire run that you're making through the season, so that everybody kind of has an opportunity to win the awards at the top. But there is still like a small skill gap there that better players can take advantage of. But then in ranked, there needs to be no rewards at all. It needs to be on a much higher difficulty. There needs to be yearly leaderboards instead of monthly leaderboards. They need to revert back to the old ELO system, which was basically a 0 to... there was no cap on it, but it was basically where if you got past 2,000, you were an elite player and you were in the World Series. So 2,000 was the mark that you had to hit. I thought that was a much better ELO system than what we have in place right now. I'm not a big fan of the current ELO system, and I would like it if they made it a yearly thing and they reverted it back to the old system. And then finally, to use this mode, this new ranked head-to-head mode, to promote esports. And what I think that this would do, the reason that I'm suggesting this is that for the casual player, they can play and they can enjoy seasons mode, and they won't be left out of any of the rewards or anything like that. And they can have a good time playing on a lower difficulty. They can, not feel like they're struggling hitting all the time. They'll have a fairly good time with the game playing seasons, and I think it would make them happy. And for the competitive side, they can play both. They can play in seasons to get all the rewards that they want, and they can play in ranked for the yearly leaderboards to try to get to the top, to try to crack into that esports scene. And that's the big reward with ranked head-to-head, is that you would be playing to try to for bragging rights and to try to crack that esports scene that would develop out of this. Now, is MLB The Show ready right now for esports? Abso-fucking-lutely not. It's a broken game right now. It would do horribly as an esport. But if they can fix all the problems with the game, revert back to some approximation of MLB 16's hitting, and kind of stop this philosophical move to placate the masses instead of trying to create the best game possible. If they go in with that new mindset, I think that by next year it could be ready. They just have to abandon this idea that they have to please everyone and they just have to make the best game possible. So ranked head-to-head, you know, you'd be able to play the seasons, get all the rewards, but you don't really care about that if you're a competitive player. The bread and butter of the competitive player is the leaderboards, is getting to the top, getting to the World Series, getting into the top 50, the top 25. That's what those competitive players care about. The rewards are just like nice little butter on top for them right now with ranked seasons. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But they do care a lot about being one of the best players in the world. And that's what ranked head-to-head would be about. And that's not to say that your casual player couldn't get into ranked head-to-head, but they would go into it with an understanding that that was the competitive mode in MLB The Show. That they aren't going to go into that thinking that they're going to be hitting everything left and right, that it's going to be, you know, really easy to hit, and that they are going to have the same experience that they have in seasons. That you would have to drive it home that this mode is only for those who want to make it as far as they can and be one of the best players, and you know, not just for them, but for, you know, to try to establish a skill gap, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Is to try to establish a skill gap where you have obviously elite players, obviously, you know, good players, great players, average players, below average players. This new mode will kind of establish that hierarchy, and just for the sake of establishing it, just for the sake of being better at the game than, you know, someone else. I think that this is the way to fix these issues. But the only problem, the thing that I don't like about this idea, is that you would be basically fundamentally changing the game in between modes. That's the big issue that I have with it right now, is that you know, if you played seasons and you were on a lower difficulty and everything, and then all of a sudden you hop into ranked head-to-head and it was a lot more difficult, it turns into a completely different game. So I don't really know how to fix that, but just sitting here thinking about it, it's the best solution that I can come up with. And I don't like it. I wish that they would find a way to balance this out without, you know, having to pick one side or the other. But right now, it just doesn't feel like they're going to be able to. But I don't know, guys. This is my solution to these problems that we've been having. Obviously, a lot of people have been talking about this since the new patch came out, and it didn't satisfy everyone. People are still pretty, you know, amped up about it. Even though I thought the patch did a pretty good job, it was a step in the right direction. A lot of people said it's still terrible, and they hate it, and all that. And I don't want to see that. I want to see everybody happy with the game. So, I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. If you like the video, please leave a like. And, yeah, I will see you guys later. But until then, peace.